Joining me now, someone who made news earlier in the week as the 17th Democrat to come out in support of the deal, Hawaii Senator Brian Schatz. Senator, take me through your decision-making process in getting to yes and to stating it publicly.
Well, I think the first thing that you had to do was read the deal, and it was posted publicly, but it was noteworthy, I think, that there were so many Republicans and others who immediately, upon the announcement of the deal, but before the posting of the deal and before they possibly could have read the deal or received any briefings, classified or otherwise, were already in opposition. So I read the deal a couple of times. I got briefed by my own staff, and then I tried to kind of pursue a process of taking as much time as I needed, both in the classified and unclassified setting. And here's what it came down to for me. First of all, I think that it's a good deal in and of itself. It exceeds, I think, most of the reasonable expectations of people in the nonproliferation space in terms of what they thought was possible with a deal. But even if you kind of don't agree with that analysis of the deal, we have to remember that there is really no alternative, that the alternative is to allow Iran to move apace with their nuclear weapons program, and they get the money. I mean, they're going to get this $56 billion because if we reject the deal, the P5+1 has already articulated to us directly that they're not going to participate in multilateral sanctions.
Right.
So the question at this point becomes, do you want to pursue this deal, eliminate 98% of their fissile material, knowing that they may try to cheat later on, but that still seems to me a far superior option than to go ahead and give them their money and their nuclear program.
I'm going to ask you a question that politicians almost never answer honestly, but I'm going to ask it anyway, and maybe you will. How hard did people come for you behind the scenes on this? I mean, how hard were you getting lobbied? How much pressure was there? Are there longtime supporters and donors of yours who thought this was the opportunity to punch your number into the cell phone and work you on this?
Well, I certainly got lots of very enthusiastic phone calls on both sides of this issue. But I think there is a little bit of a respect factor in terms of this being an issue of conscience. I think Harry Reid in the earlier segment said it exactly right. You know, this is not a political calculus for most of us. This is a question of conviction. And, you know, Chuck Schumer is my very good friend, and he's going to be our Democratic leader, our majority leader in the Senate. But I think that he came down on this in terms of his own convictions. The lobbying is furious, but I think it's kind of heated up over the last couple of weeks. The first week or so, because we were in the Senate, because there were briefings, because we were trying to at least preserve some semblance of dignity within the institution, the lobbying from outside groups, you laugh when I say that, but the lobbying from outside groups, I think, hadn't heated up until I think, you know, both pro and con people had the sense that they were going to try to get to us when we came home for our summer recess.
The coverage of this, particularly in the way that this has proceeded, particularly the kind of vote counting, it's been notable to me, obviously, because Netanyahu, Israeli prime minister, has worked so hard. Pro-Israel groups are against this deal. There's obviously a strong affinity and connection to the American Jewish community on that. There has been a real focus on high-profile Jewish politicians. Chuck Schumer, yourself, Rahm Emanuel, who's the mayor of Chicago, came out for the deal, which, you know, I don't know what the mayor of Cleveland thinks, and the mayor of Philadelphia. What do you make of that? What do you make of the sort of intense focus on particularly Jewish politicians and where they stand on this?
Well, I think it's not unreasonable at all. I mean, if you had an issue of major importance for the U.S.-Japan relationship, you would be interested in what Americans of Japanese ancestry and AJA politicians thought. If likewise there were an issue having to do with the Hispanic community, I don't think it's at all unreasonable to pay particular attention to Jewish American leaders. But I think what we're seeing is that Jewish American leaders are split as the American public is split. Everybody is trying to sort this out. And from my standpoint, the opponents have been able to kick up enough dust in the first sort of 10 to 20 days of this to create confusion, create concern. And look, I mean, nobody really wants to make a deal with Iran as a matter of instinct because they are not our allies. And even if we proceed with this deal as we should, they're not going to become our allies. Right. And so they kicked up enough dust. But what has happened as people actually study the particulars is that this is a very good deal for the United States, for peace in the region, for Israel. And the most important thing here is there really is no viable alternative. And the idea that we would pursue any kind of military action, it's just really important to point out that any military plan, and the 3-star and 4-star generals and admirals that wrote a letter to the Congress and others saying this, I think was a really important moment this last week. They basically said, look, there's no warfighting plan that will make as much progress with respect to pushing back on Iran's nuclear intentions as this deal. And so the professional warfighters are the ones that are saying that diplomacy is the best approach here.
Brian Schatz, Senator from Hawaii. First time on the program, I believe. Thank you very much. Definitely come back. Good to have you.
Thank you.
All right, coming up, big government for me, but not for thee. The growing conservative backlash against Scott Walker's basketball arena boom.